human, a hotelier. He's a YPOer. He's the founder of this assembly and practice hospitality. And most of all, he's a hotel fanatic. So this guy will never stay in the same hotel more than one night. That means if he's in Manhattan for 3 nights, that's an opportunity for Bashar to stay in 3 independent hotels. This guy is nuts. I mean, what's your count now in Manhattan?
I've kept count only in Manhattan. I'm at 215 different hotels in the island of Manhattan.
Yeah.
No, don't clap for me. That's like divorce causing, it's stupid, don't do it.
Yeah, don't egg him on. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So today we're talking about the future of hospitality. And obviously there's a ton to cover. As we all know, the pandemic has dramatically changed everything around us. In fact, it's not just the pandemic, but it's multiple crises we've faced as a nation in this sort of pandemic time period. The pandemic sort of helping to reveal the problems of systemic racism in our country, the healthcare inequities, and all of those things. And so how do all these things affect hospitality and as we march forward into the future? That's kind of what we're going to get into today. I have a little quote here. Today's travelers are leaning into technology. They're voting with their dollars and their tastes are changing. So we are going to explore this, but first I want to start with, how do we define hospitality? Bashar, the hotel fanatic, I'll give it to you.
Sure, so really hospitality is a very simple concept at its core. So I have this quote that I use often, and it goes something like this. When a stranger shows up at your door, before you ask him who he is, where he's from, and where he's going to, feed him for 3 days, because by then he'll either be strong enough to answer, or you'll be such good friends it won't matter. And that's really at the heart of what you guys do, more so even than big hotels, because you have the opportunity to have this, it's your house, right? Like you're hosting someone in your house. So people say we're in the service industry, and I sort of cry foul on that idea, because I say, where I get my oil changed, they're in the service industry, my dentist is in the service industry, they all provide a service. And hotels deliver a service, but at the end of the day, the difference between service and hospitality, in my opinion, is service is something you deliver. And by the way, a robot can do it, and they do these days. You guys haven't seen it in their hotels now. You order a towel, and a robot will bring you your towel. But ultimately, hospitality is how you make people feel. And how you make people feel depends on what does your place look like, is the art good, is the design good, and those are all table stakes. But the way you make people feel a certain way is through their interactions with other humans. I sort of stay in these. And by the way, my neurotic hotel hopping around has no barrier, whether it's no money barrier, no quality barrier, on the lower end or the higher end. So I've gone to $2,000 a night hotels that are spectacularly gorgeous, and I call them soulless. And you go to a small little place where you walk in and you feel that warm energy. And I believe, and I'm preaching this gospel, that the energy comes from humans. Because if the place is void of people, it's just a building, it means nothing. So ultimately, if you really understand what that means, this idea of how you make people feel, everything else doesn't matter, it becomes secondary. It's all important and it builds up to this sort of overall experience you have in a hotel, but the art won't matter, the design won't matter, none of it will matter because they'll feel that warm and fuzzy of being welcome. So I think it's really important to take that sort of non-tangible emotional piece and focus the most on it.
So service is what you deliver, hospitality is how you make people feel. Sonia, what do you think?
Very similar to what Bashar said, as you might imagine, it's all about belonging to me. So it's an extension of how do you make people feel like they belong or not. If you make them feel like they belong, you extended great hospitality towards them. If they don't feel like they belong, not so much.
Thank you, that's great. All right, so we're gonna jump in and we have 4 topics we're gonna talk about today. So personalization, technology, marketing, and design and construction. And I want to make sure that this is really actionable, that you're able to take what we talk about today and bring it back to your inn, your B&B. So we'll go ahead and get started and just make sure that we provide some examples. Okay. So personalization, we're going to start here. Hot topic, one thing I can bring to this from the marketing hotel side of things is the amount of times that we're reaching out to our guests and the ways in which we can reach out to them more. One that I think of often, stay cycle campaigns, you guys probably know, somebody makes a reservation, they get a confirmation email, they get a pre-arrival email before they arrive. After they leave, how do you retain that guest? And one thing that we've been doing on the personalization front, all this data that we know about these customers, right? We can come back and market to them and ask them to come back and stay with us again on their booking anniversary. So we're not emailing them just for the sake of emailing, but we're thinking about how we can reach that guest at the time when they're starting to think about that vacation that they missed, that time that they had, that great time that they had. And when we hit them on their booking anniversary date, we tend to see a nice conversion. We tend to drive incremental revenue to our properties. That's just one piece of personalization that I love from a marketing side. Do you have more to add?
As we mentioned before, I think it's just remembering people's preferences and tailoring the experiences based upon those preferences, especially if they are people who have been with you before. I was just talking at lunch with some folks and they were saying, oh, this woman, she stayed with us 4 times and we know that she's a vegan, but on the last time she wanted some bacon, right? Like, so that was planning for the preferences because you know what somebody does, and then they switched it up at the last minute, but knowing that you can still be fluid because people do evolve and change over time. So just making sure that you are able to treat people as individuals and find a way to capture the information they have about what they like, what they don't like, what they need, so that you can tailor your experience to fit their needs.
You better time me, I have a lot to say about this subject. I personally think the future of luxury is ultra personalization. And I think we hoteliers for a long time have sort of imposed on others what we believe. I use the Ritz-Carlton as an example all the time. They have a credo card and that's what we say to every guest. Well, guess what? That might resonate with Sonia, it might not resonate with me. So the idea of emotional intelligence and really giving people what they want matters a lot. So in my travels, I like my room at 64 degrees year-round, meat locker. And I'm titanium elite on Marriott. You would think once out of all my crazy travels, I'd walk into the room and it'd be at 64 degrees. Never once. So Sonia's point from earlier today about you collect all this information about me, what are you doing with it? And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what mint I like on my pillow, that's sort of the example we use as hoteliers. It's really the simple, subtle things that I'd argue you shouldn't have known about me, but took the time to find out. I'll tell my quick story if you don't mind. So I travel a lot, I happen to know people in the industry, there's always like amenities in the room that happen to show up to the room at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I get in at midnight, this cheese is sweating, the fruit is rotten, and the wine, whatever it is, I'm not gonna touch because I'm not drinking it and I'm not carrying it with me the next day. So this one hotel I go to has a little card not in an envelope, because all the cards I get are usually in an envelope and you open them and you read them and they all say the same thing, as if they were bought from a catalog. So this one card is in this one hotel one time says, blah, 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 welcome, the same nonsense that everybody says, and at the end it says, P.S. The show Blackish is on Channel 8 at 8 o'clock tonight. And I'm literally blown away. I'm saying, the show Blackish on ABC, if you haven't seen a fantastic show, how did they know that I like it and why are they telling me that? Someone literally took 120 seconds to Google my name to find out on the public portion of my Facebook profile that I like that show. And that little single note was far more valuable to me than any Chateau Lafite or Opus One or whatever they were going to give me. It doesn't matter. Because again, to Sonia's earlier point about Maslow's hierarchy of need, that means I have arrived. You've hit that button for me that makes me feel special. Because when I get an amenity, you guys know this, in bigger hotels more than yours maybe, there's a list that says VIP arrivals for the day, and you send them all the same thing. So it becomes somewhat of a checklist, but for someone to go and Google me, now I feel like I'm special, and I'm their customer for life. And I use the example of Cheers a lot in the show that I think most will know here. That reference is starting to lose, by the way, its effectiveness as we get to know Cheers. You know what they say about Cheers? They never said the best bar, the biggest bar, the nicest bar, the best design, the best beer, none of that stuff. They said where everyone knows your name. Because at the end of the day, again, Maslow's hierarchy of need, that's at the very top of our needs. You better get the bottom part right, safety and quality and cleanliness. But if you make me feel like I belong, I sort of say often, we humans are longing for belonging. We all feel like we're a part of something, but we're really not. We want more. We want to belong. And if you make me feel that I am the only person that matters in your life that day, you've won me for life. That's why this idea of personalization, I believe, truly is the future of luxury.
Absolutely, thank you so much. And you touched on the idea of like checkpoint service, right? And going beyond the checkpoints. But I think one thing we all have to think about is those surveys that we're sending out. How valuable is the information we're receiving, and how could we potentially change the traditional survey into something where we are actually gathering the kind of feedback that we can use to actually create better hospitality experiences.
I promise I'll shut up after this one example, sorry. So surveys, you guys know them, the mystery shops. We all do them, we certainly do them in big hotels. So we send someone in and they have a checklist of 100 things on it. Did they use your name? Did they offer you blah, blah, blah? Did they, check. And I paused at one point and said, I could literally check that list 100% and be the most miserable human you ever met. So we started intermixing them with, we call them emotional-based chops. So we send Sonia in and we say, no checklist. When you checked it, how did they make you feel? Which has nothing to do with any steps you take. It has to do with how she felt with someone dealing with her. And you'd be amazed because you'd see some hotels would ace the transactional shop and fail miserably on the emotional, and vice versa. And what you want is a balance, right? If you run a sort of a traditional operation that needs consistency, you want those steps. But they're not what wins the guest, it really is how you make them feel.
Absolutely. Yesterday, whenever we were checking in, my husband and my daughter were with us, and Luna was doing something, and then after I finished checking in, I see that one of the ladies was working behind the desk. She's over giving Luna a little dinosaur that she's been playing with like the whole time. I remember that aspect of the check-in because she took the time to, have this nice interaction with my daughter and talk to her, and it was beautiful. But those are the things that we don't forget. And if somebody would have asked me that on a survey, I could say, oh, this was a beautiful moment. We need more people like her behind the desk because she makes an impact. But those aren't often the things that are asked on the survey. I use the example a lot about airline surveys that they send after you're on a flight. And there's one airline in particular that is always freezing. Like, it's always freezing, and I'm somebody who gets cold. And I remember one time I was miserable, like bone cold. I'm begging for blankets. They're like, we don't have any blankets. I'm, calling, and I got the survey afterwards, and the questions that they're asking me have nothing to do with anything, or there's not even a space really for me to say your plane is too cold. Like, I hated every minute of it because it was too cold. But we need to be able to make sure that we're giving people the opportunity to tell us how they really feel, and that we're using the information, or we're asking questions for the point of improving, rather than for the point of saying, look, we have a 99% customer satisfaction rating in this, if in reality it's not true because you aren't asking the right questions.
Absolutely. So I think the takeaway here is take a look at your guest survey when you go home. Think about removing, I would say, 75% of the checkbox questions and leave one open-ended question. That's going to be the most important question that you ask, and then make sure to be reading those responses and coming up with ways to respond as you move forward.
I think the simplest question in the survey, one question: would you recommend this place to friends and family? And if they say yes, you've done a great job. Who cares about anything else, right? And by the way, ADD, everything you do, you get a survey now. So they're only going to focus on it if it's easy for them, and free form, to your point, because you can't possibly ask every question. So just let someone tell you what they think. Don't turn the heat up on the plane on me, though, please.
Please turn the heat up on the plane.
I'll buy you a traveling Hermes blanket, whatever you need.
Personalization, different needs, right? All right, so technology is our second topic. Lots to talk about here. I want to start with a poll of the audience. So how many of you are using technology in your guest services or in your marketing? Text messaging. Wow, this is great. And by the way, Carrie asked me to mention that you can, Select Registry offers a text messaging platform that you can actually take advantage of 4 times a year. So if you're not using text messaging yet, get in touch with Select Registry on that. But let's go ahead and talk about technology. I guess we could start with texting, just so that you all know. Text messaging has the highest open rate of any marketing channel, 80% open rate. And I'm sure you've all been text messaged by a brand that you like, and even if you don't want to open it, you wind up opening it. So it's actually a pretty amazing marketing channel right off the bat.
So, as I mentioned before, my husband is a new immigrant. He often refers to Argentina as a third world country and the U.S. as a first world country. That's not true, but that's just part of the reference. So we're in the hotel, and he's like, I cannot believe that this is not a smart TV. I cannot believe that this isn't a smart TV. Like, we've been talking about watching Encanto all weekend and doing all these things. We watched none of that because it's not a smart TV, and we just didn't want to end up watching it on our phone. So little things like that. Technology is important, but there's also basic things like making sure that some of the tools that you have within the room that are tech-based are up to date for how people use them in the world.
look, technology is obviously really important, maybe less so in the context of your offerings, because people generally want to go and escape it. Some of you probably don't have TVs in your rooms. But I say staying in a hotel used to be an aspirational experience, right? Their art was better than yours at home, the design was better than yours at home, the mattress, the internet, the flat screen TV, the room service. And the world has moved so fast that going to a hotel now, to Sonia's point, you have to suffer, because your internet at home is better, your TV at home is better, your mattress at home is better. So how do we find that balance? And it's hard for us hoteliers, like I can't change my TVs every 2 years. TVs used to live, you guys remember, used to live for like 10 years, 15 years. Now it seems like every 2 years you've got to upgrade your TV, and it's a big investment, or your internet or whatever. But ultimately you've got to make it easy and convenient for them. And it doesn't matter what you think. I use the TV example, by the way. I want a TV in my room. Well, if you don't want to give me a TV in my room, that's fine. That's your choice. Don't impose your choice on me. Either have an option for TV or no TV, because I may not buy you because I want a TV in my room. So technology has become a part of our lives, whether we like it or not. Hotels during the pandemic used technology as an excuse to remove labor following the airline war, to save money. And I challenge that notion and I say, use technology to remove friction, but keep the interactions with humans for the things that matter. Like if I want to order a towel, I don't need to talk to anyone. I'm happy to go on the app or by text and get my towel with a robot. Great. But when I check in, I want to talk to someone. I want to ask them what their favorite noodle shop in town is, or whatever, lobster roll, whatever it may be, because that's the part about belonging. If I'm doing it like at a bank and I go to an ATM and there's never a person, not that I enjoy dealing with people at a bank, by the way, but the idea is if you remove that transaction, you become a commodity, and a commodity is price driven. I don't care if it's Bank of America, First Republic, or US Bank, but if you want me to come back to you, you've got to hit that Maslow's self-actualization at the top. So use technology to remove friction, and you've got to keep up, unfortunately, and it's an expensive proposition. Like your internet can't be slow no matter where you are, it doesn't matter, find a solution. The smart TV thing, maybe in your context, isn't as important, because people nowadays, by the way, they all use their devices, they don't care about your TV. So use it wisely, and for marketing, it's a fantastic tool, obviously.
Yeah, so I like this idea. So use technology to remove the friction, but you can actually use technology to enhance the guest service instead of replace it. So I think that we got that point.
And the marketing piece of it, obviously, like to your point, you go to Instagram, you do 3 clicks, and you bought something that you've never seen before.
Yeah, exactly.
You try to go to a hotel website, I'm on click 72, and you're making me change my keyboard to numerical when I'm putting my zip code. First of all, why do you even want my zip code, right? Like, why does it matter? Change the keyboard for me. It's really, really simple. If any of you web developers are telling you, oh, hard and expensive, they're lying, because it's not hard and it's not expensive. Think about the guest journey step by step, and think about, you'll be shocked through your process, how much you get in their way of buying from you. Literally, how much you get in the way of them buying from you. You know why we go to Expedia? Because 3 clicks and I'm done.
Yep.
I don't go for it for the price. You guys know we have price parities with the OTA. The rate's the same. We go to it for simplicity.
You know, one other example of technology in room that I'm seeing a lot more during the pandemic, and it's definitely going to hold strong, is the QR code. And we all used a QR code to get to the agenda today. A hotel I work with in Providence, Rhode Island, actually has a QR code in their room, and that's how guests access their compendium. So instead of that binder with all those pages of all the things to do, it's housed on a 4x6 QR code sitting inside of a frame in their room, so one less piece of paper for everybody to touch, or binder as it may be. And it's a really nice way, because then online we can update the COVID safety, we can update the amenities, and on and on and on. So think about that QR code and how you can use it, because everybody has a smartphone these days, so you can use technology to actually remove the friction and enhance the service.
And addressing Sonia's issue, like if you're looking at a menu and you don't want to yell out, hi, I'm a vegan, it's so much easier on a technology web platform to do it than in paper and different menus and all of that. So you can easily do that to accommodate people, and really, again, remove the friction, make it a pleasant experience for the end user.
All right, moving on to my favorite topic, marketing. Okay, so Sonia talked a ton about inclusive marketing this morning. I love a lot of what she said. You know, one thing I want to talk about is social media. I loved when Sonia was sharing some of those influencers. I think of influencers, you know, it's not one size fits all. When you think about an influencer and how you might use them at your property, I just want you to know, not all influencers look the same, are the same age, and actually that's a way that you can, if you're feeling like, oh, my property, doesn't attract a certain type of guest. You can actually reach out and start to bring people in that look like the kind of guest that you would like to come walk through your doors. So actually, influencers are a good way to broaden your reach, to expand your audience, and actually to attract more guests. So I like that for influencers. How about you?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times when people are thinking influencers, they immediately go to people with big names that are household names and have a lot of followers. But there are lots of micro-influencers or influencers who have a little bit more followers, who have pretty loyal followings, and they just need somebody to introduce them to a place or something that they haven't seen. I can't tell you the number of times where somebody that I follow on Instagram went to stay at this place, and they're showing a photo of themselves, and I'm like, ooh, that looks great, and I click through, and now I'm following this property that I had no idea about. And I probably never would have found out about them otherwise. They're not people who are, who've got a ton of followers, but I trust them. So you're just working on borrowing the trust of people, the people that you want to reach, and making sure that you are thinking about who that influencer is. So as you're thinking about how you want to start reaching a broader and more diverse set of customers, influencers can be a great way to do that if you start reaching or partnering with influencers who are part of the communities that you want to reach.
Obviously, really important channel, not the only channel, but an important channel. And we hoteliers, and I'm with you, you probably all scratch your head and say, what's the ROI on this? And it's really hard to justify. I think ultimately you have to think about it as long-term brand building. It's not like traditional marketing where you do something and you know exactly how many people came through it because you give them a code. It really is ultimately, it's an investment you have to make. And I assume no one here is one of those people that say, oh, that internet thing is a fad, it's gonna go away. It's not going away, social media, right? So you've gotta stay on it. It's sort of the wild, wild west right now. And to Sonia's point, the people with 2 million followers, they're terrible because they can't engage with their audience. But if someone has 25,000 people that follow them, they can actually, if someone said, hey, this place you stayed at in Maine looked amazing, tell me more about it, that person can actually engage with you. So there's more direct and the ROI on that is far greater than somebody with 1 million followers who just, people are just following them because everybody else is. So that's a great point about the micro.
Yeah, and as much as traditional advertising, you can measure ROI, and maybe influencer marketing, you cannot. Sonia touched on a really important word, which is trust, and consumers trust their peers. So 55% of consumers say they trust their peers over traditional advertising, right? So this is a channel where people feel like it's word of mouth. It's, social media is word of mouth on steroids, right? So it's a way to reach people and make them feel like, okay, I can trust this source. This is legitimate information. This is a person's real review of a place, not some glossy advertisement in a magazine. So there's value there, even if you can't quite measure dollar for dollar. The other thing I want to touch on marketing-wise is video. So how many of you are using video right now on social media? I'm sure you all have social pages. Raise of hands. So video, I know it's challenging. So video actually, it's highly engaging. We all know that Instagram is now favoring video content. Sonia actually uses a lot of video content. And there's a reason that they're doing that. So video content converts at 25% higher rate than static imagery. So when you show a video, people start to get a feel for what it would be like to be at your property, right? They start to feel like they could see themselves there. They could, watch the sunset on your Instagram feed and decide, okay, I gotta go, I gotta have that experience, that sunset. So video is another area where I think it's a really good way for people to see themselves at your property, and hopefully book.
I think that people sometimes feel like video content has to be this grand event. It's got to be perfect sort of piece of serenity or whatever. And I think that people would probably be surprised at the most mundane things that people watch and find entertaining on video. And I am guilty of it myself. I can't believe I'm watching somebody pour their coffee in the morning every day, right? I can't believe that I'm watching this person open up a box of a package, right? But these are things that I find myself glued to, and then if I haven't seen it in a couple days, I'm like, wait, I didn't see this person. So they're things that you do every day at your property, even the smallest, most mundane things like cracking an egg, and as you're preparing to make breakfast, or this was, the number of things are endless, but you'd be surprised how interesting people find it and how mouth-watering it can be that makes people say, hey, I need to come. I was talking to somebody at lunch, and I think you mentioned that you had a 3-course breakfast, and the entire first course is gluten-free. How many videos can you make out of that? Like making your, right? You can make all of those things, videos, a video of the day, and just kind of showing like, it's breakfast time, and going through, and I think that you'll find people getting addicted and used to seeing it, because there's not necessarily you show it one time and you're done. These are the things that are part of your ritual and your routine that people will come to expect watching your content, but also whenever they come to your property.
I'm embarrassed to tell you how many hours I burn a day watching TikTok at my age, but I can't tell you either literally how many incredible things I've learned, like professional things I've learned from TikTok. So it's become a medium that everyone goes to, and like Excel tricks. I'll give you an example. Like you're trying to forward someone an article, it's full of ads. I learned on TikTok that if you go to outline.com, put the link for the article, it cleans all that junk out for you and gives you just that article. Something as simple as that. But the point is, it's DIY. I have the patience of a 3-year-old on a sugar diet, so I want like a really short snippet, and TikTok is perfect for that. So to Sonia's point, there's so many great things happening in your hotel. A couple with a cute dog check-in, someone should, like literally there should be a phone there always to capture that moment. And you'd be amazed at what people find entertaining, to get to her point. And that's not advertising, that's not marketing, that's building loyalty, brand building, getting your name out there more and more. So TikTok, like Facebook literally is worried about TikTok eating their lunch, Instagram's going all video. To Amy's point, Google is in fact testing today video-only websites. Think about it, why do I want to spend 10 minutes reading your whatever? I'd rather watch someone tell me about it. We're lazy, right? We don't want to read. So I think video is important, and in your context, you have all these beautiful places in beautiful locations. There's so much you can do. DIY, you don't have to spend $10,000 for every photo shoot. It literally should be $50 if someone is doing it for you. It should not be more.
And one of the benefits of that is the more you use video, more guerrilla style as well, you will encourage other people whenever they come to stay at your property to take these types of videos as well, and then you've got user-generated content that multiplies it, and that's even better because it's social proof of other people saying it versus you having to say it yourself. So.
Yes, okay, amazing. You guys touched on everything. We're going to move on to the last topic, and then we'll get into Q&A. So design and construction. So what's ahead for the future of hospitality in terms of design and construction? Want to start, Bashar? Or Sonia?
I would just think about accessibility and think about what are the things that people actually want, and what are the design decisions that are more permanent that could be repelling people because they're a fad. I talked to somebody today about bathtubs. They said that the trend now is they're taking bathtubs out of, it was you, they're taking bathtubs out of rooms, but there's a lot of people who love bathtubs, right? I've talked about the shower head, right? The shower head doesn't work for me as a black woman because I'm not washing my hair every day. So if the shower head is overhead, I have to shower like this, which is not how you shower, right? There are a number of things that you have to think about which work for the masses that don't work for a lot of other people. And if you don't plan for inclusivity in mind up front, from a design and construction standpoint, it's a lot harder to go back and change it. So if you think about all the people that you're going to serve, less about trends and more about sustainability and what are their real needs, it makes it easier for you to design and build in a way that works for a broader number of people.
I'll touch on it from the COVID lens for a minute. And because of COVID, a lot of things have changed. And I think beyond sanitation and the whatever, hand sanitizer and all that stuff, think past that for a minute. I think we Americans have realized that, first of all, being cramped in like sardines is not fun, it's not good, right? So we've found out the value of personal space because of COVID. So I think we're starting to think about that as we think about hotels. And again, different in your cases, because usually your hotels are basically homes that are living rooms, so they have that sensibility anyway, but allowing people to socialize without jamming them together. So creating environments that allows me to sit across from the couch with you and chatting with you, but not have to sit right next to you or be sort of jammed together. So that's one piece, this idea of personal space. But the second and most important idea is this bringing the indoors in and out and vice versa, beyond just sticking a bunch of plants in your lobby. How do you really think thoughtfully about, could there be an outdoor space using heaters like restaurants have sourced to now because of the pandemic that's become so popular because people feel like, I'm not talking about the sidewalk stuff in New York City, but I'm just talking about these restaurants that use their back parking lots that, have become part of the restaurant. So I think people really want to connect with nature more and feel like they're outdoors more. By the way, I say one of the least appreciated amenities in a hotel construct is you can't open the window. I want fresh air. Like, allow me to open the window. So a lot of those things are really, really important. The bathtub conversation has been obviously going on for a while. And I think the balance is in what we do in our cases is we say, okay, there's 100 rooms, let's leave 5 with tubs, so there's one. But the issue isn't that tub that we have here, it's gotta be something pleasant that invites someone in. Children, obviously parents wanna, use the tubs for their children. So you have to be thoughtful, but I think the big trends we're seeing going forward is this indoor-outdoor space and the idea of some personal space to jam us together.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the same lines of we don't like to be sardines, does it seem like hoteliers are looking more towards second cities, towards more rural escapes and things like that? I mean, there's glamping, there's eco retreats, there's yurts, there's all kinds of places we can stay in. You guys might have some interesting lodging options among the audience here, but what do you think about that, the rise of second cities?
I hope music to your ears, as you know, that the pandemic has forced us to rediscover America again, and people lose sight of, for me to travel from Seattle to Miami, if I were in Europe, I'd cross 5 countries. And we think America, we paint it in one brush. There are so many different and diverse and unique places. So I am thrilled that Americans have rediscovered America and drive to destinations, national parks included, have seen, in my experience, those that I haven't know, their best year ever in 2021, like ever. So I think the trend will continue. Obviously, people will have euphoria again once we can travel, and they'll go to Europe and whatever, Asia. But I think they'll come back, and I think America has found itself again, and I think you guys are at the verge of winning that for the long term. And I think generationally, you're seeing the younger generation is really interested in sort of being one with nature and being out there and escaping the rat nest that is, New York and Washington and Miami and all that, and going to smaller secondary we're doing a hotel in Bentonville, Arkansas, the mountain biking capital of the US. Who would have, I would have never in a million years guessed that, right? So there are a lot of great places out there, and I think you guys will, if you position it right, because B&Bs historically have been viewed as, it's for, when you're retired and you're going around with your spouse at 65 running around finding a B&B. But I'd argue today a B&B is an attractive offering to a couple that are 24-year-old that want to go and have that experience. So don't pigeonhole yourself into a category, because I think we as sort of Americans, our vision is broadening in terms of what is cool and what is happening and how we want to experience travel.
Anything to add? Good. Okay. Well, here is, I made a little Cliff's Notes for all of you. So these are all 4 topics that we just talked through and kind of some of the ideas. The formatting got a little screwed up, so don't
You make it sound like we memorized and rehearsed.
Oh, no, I might have. But I want to jump into Q&A. We actually have about 20 minutes remaining, so questions? Oh, sorry. Oh, you wanted the Cliff's Notes. All right, see? There you go.
Probably share the deck with them if they wanted to, right?
I'm so proud that you guys are taking pictures of that.
Thank
you so much. Sonia, Bashar, thank you guys so much. We're going to jump into Q&A, but I really appreciate both of your time and all of the thoughts you shared.
Wow, nothing.
Hi, I had a question about influencers. I am often reached out to by influencers looking for free rooms. Every time I respond, I will give you a coupon code, and if you get 5 rooms for me, your stay is free. I have yet to have anyone take me up on that. How do you weed out, we've had Circa houses come, that was wonderful, but how do you weed out the myriad of influencers who are just trying to take advantage and get free things, especially from smaller properties like us?
So one of my strategies I use with influencers who are looking for a free stay is, to your point, well, what are you going to get me? And so the idea of 5 room nights for an influencer might feel daunting. They're thinking, okay, I know I can reach a bunch of people, but how am I gonna be able to measure whether or not they converted? So one thing we like to do with influencers is actually request content. So instead of asking them for bookings, I'm asking them for 20 photos, 10 videos, being able to use their content to promote my brand long after they've left. So that's one way to get around that, and they get to stay for free, but they're giving you a folder of images that are somewhat curated based on their style. So if it matches up with yours, and if their audience is the kind of audience that you're looking to attract to your property, it might be worth giving that a try.
Another option might be for you to investigate which influencers you want to partner with. That way you know you're working with people who are a good fit for your brand, and because you're reaching out to them, they're not trying to get over, because you kind of have an idea of what it is that you're looking for, and then you can negotiate like what type of content you want them to create that feels natural to who they are and what their audience likes.
And I agree with Amy, getting the videos and the photos. We were talking earlier about creating content. You're not going to displace any revenue. The room's going to go empty. If you can use it for that purpose, if you think about your cost of running the room versus the cost of having someone come shoot. And again, not all influencers are created equal, right? Some are just run fly by night, but those that are really true professionals with their profession will create really good quality content that then you can reuse and reuse and reuse again. So the only problem, and I feel your pain, the only problem is it's become so daunting, the inbound. Like, you're fielding hundreds of emails and calls every day. So I think Sonia's idea is a great one. Your generic answer is we don't take inbound, we reach out. We know who you are, you're on the list, and if we feel you're appropriate, we'll reach out to you.
This might be a simple question, but within our industry, where do we locate influencers?
So I would say you can, I come across influencers based upon just who I follow online. So I like to follow a lot of different people based upon what's happening in my world at the time. So I think a lot of ways that you can find them is just through some searches. Sometimes it can be local people. It doesn't necessarily have to be people who are focused on travel. It can be people who are influencers in your local area, period. So let's say there is a business owner, or there is a musician, or there is just somebody who's just a lifestyle person, and they're in your area, in your state. Reach out to them and think about, okay, do they have a following who mimics the type of people that I want to come to my property? And it doesn't matter if they talk about travel, because if they say, hey, I'm going on a trip here, and they're showcasing what their experience is like, if they're saying that it was a good experience for them and they're showcasing it, that trust can extend over to you, and you can get introduced to a lot of people that way.
It's hard work, Sonia's point. You've got to follow yourself. I've learned the hard way that the maximum people you can follow on Instagram is 7,500, and then cut you off. So you kind of have to follow a lot of people to sort of find what fits your taste. There are firms out there, marketing firms and PR firms, that have sort of a cadre of influencers that they'll recommend for you if you use them, if you use the marketing firm. But for you guys, for your sides, I would say your staff probably knows a lot of the right ones, right? But yeah, you have to do the work yourself and kind of follow a lot of people yourself to see what's good and what's bad.
Another way to think about influencers is also brands and other local businesses around your property. So if you have amenities, like if you have a little welcome amenity when guests check in, or whether it's the soap in the bathroom or something like that, if you're partnering with a local business, make sure that they know if they're able to share a picture from your property with their product beautifully placed. That's a great way to have influence outside of your own followers and be able to reach more people. So we do that with a lot of other local businesses partnered with our properties.
One other thing that I've seen, people like to be mentioned online. There's this planner that I listen to a lot on. I hear people mention on podcasts, and I ended up buying the planner because I kept hearing people talk about it. And I'm not somebody who often posts about things that I'm using, but I kept seeing people post about this planner, so I bought the planner, and when I used the planner for the first time, I posted that I was using the planner, and they shared it on their feed. And I was like, oh my gosh, they shared my post.
Maslow.
Right? And it was just one of those interesting things. People love whenever other people are sharing this because it makes them feel important. And sometimes whenever you start to share other things that people are doing locally, in your area, at your property. It will sort of create this sense where other people will start to see. They might start doing things on purpose at your property so that you will see it and share it, and it just kind of has that ripple effect.
That's such a great point. We used for hotels, I used to say, listen, if we're gonna have a Facebook account, if I follow you and every time I see something from you, you're selling me, you're selling me, you're selling me, you're gonna lose me. I don't wanna be sold to all the time. So my mandate to our folks was, listen, talk about your location, to Sonia's point. And in fact, if your competitor does something interesting, talk about it. Because all of a sudden now I'm paying attention to you. You've become my source of all things about that region. So when the time comes that you want to sell me, I'm actually paying attention to you. So think about how do you celebrate a lot of the folks in your neighborhood, in your town, because they become your brand evangelists. They go and talk about your brand to everybody else. So it really, your goal is to do the least of the work yourself. And to Sonia's point, if you do enough of it, other people will do the work.
Right, so that mountain biking in Bentonville, Arkansas, I believe it was, that could be something great if you're in Arkansas or the surrounding area to start talking about, to start sharing content about it because, oh hey, like there's a local partner, and it's a great way for people to see that all the benefits of the area in addition to your property, because that's part of things that they could be doing while they're there.
And a real life example, I live in Portland, Oregon. There's a great ice cream place called Salt and Straw. People wait in line for it for hours. So we partnered with them. We brought some of their ice cream in. And we tell the guests, hey, I'm sure you've heard about Salt and Straw because it's on the top 10 list of everything. We've partnered with them and we'll give you their ice cream. We'll bring it to your room. Why wait in line? We get pints. Cuddle up in your room, watch a movie, we'll get a pint of ice cream. And by doing that, anyone who follows them now sees it, and the guests post about it, and it's a twofer because they're getting a post and I'm getting a post out of it. So really building those strong partnerships and relationships is the most important, because kind of like I believe in the adage, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you are and get out of their way. And similarly, when you're an establishment, partner with the best in town and let it just become a thing on its own.
Yeah, the phenomenon of user-generated content. It's pretty amazing. And 5 billion people, by the way, one more stat. 5 billion people look at Instagram stories every day. So the idea that, yeah, if people are posting about you and you're able to just share it in your stories, it starts to sort of proliferate that knowledge to broader and broader audiences. So almost everybody is an influencer if you think about it that way. So don't wait for those thousands and tens of thousands and people to reach out to you to ask to come stay for free. Think of everybody as an influencer and potential brand ambassador for you.
And don't underestimate your value, the innkeeper, as an influencer yourself. Sonia talked about cracking the eggs in the morning. I maintain that all successful hotel brands have had a figure person in the front, a show pony, as it were, because it humanizes the experience. When I go to Marriott, for all I know, I'm going into like a corporate black hole, and Betty, who's chatting with me online, is a bot, is not a person. So when you think about Airbnb, by the way, I think one of the biggest reasons for their success is when you're dealing with Airbnb, you're dealing with a host. You're dealing with a warm and fuzzy human. So to the extent you have the ability to do it, like you should become connected to your building, connected to your offering, and you become the influencer in your own way. You're making breakfast every day for your guests. Well, is that an interesting? Could you make it? Could you do the recipe that you do for the pancakes that came from your great-grandmother and talk about that? And all of a sudden, you have content yourself. And you don't have to be perfectly made up, and your hair doesn't, in fact, the less professional, the more authentic it is, right? So you look at a little headband on, whatever, in your pajamas for all I care, right? That's what people associate with, because everything else has become so shiny and fake. We're like, yeah, it's not real life. This is real life, and will resonate more with people.
Let's see. Any other questions?
They're post-lunch coma, so.
Yeah.
Can you talk to the value of itineraries, creating itineraries for guests?
So marketing outside of our hotel, basically what's beyond our doors into the community, right? So.
I mean, I think I'll go somewhere with my wife. She wants to go on a hike. I don't. So I think I would say create a menu, not an itinerary. Back to the idea of let me build my itinerary, but make my life easy, because you're onto something. Someone goes somewhere like, oh God, the paradox of choice, too many options, I don't know what to do, who do I listen, who do I trust? So if I trust you enough to lay my head on your pillow, I should trust your offerings enough. So if you could somehow make it either build your own custom, right? Rather than here's an itinerary, take it or leave it kind of thing. I think that will win you back to, if you believe in my premise that the future of luxury is ultra personalization, you guys know, you've been to whatever fancy restaurant, 17 courses. I'm like, I like 2 of the 17. Why am I here? I'd rather go to a restaurant and order 2 things that I like. So the idea of give me what I want, don't force it upon me. And just because everyone who goes to whatever has to go on a hike, I don't want to go on a hike, I want to do something else. So I'd say if you can somehow use technology to streamline the process where click, 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 and I've built my own itinerary, I think it's a great idea.
I think that could be helpful as well. If you look at it as you are the ambassador for the area, and if somebody's a guest, depending on how many times they've come or where they're coming from, they might not know anything about what's around. So that would be a great way, not only for you to partner with other businesses in the area, but to extend the value that you're offering to your guests by showing them, here's other things that you might be able to do to add even more value to their stay. Because it's not just about the stay at your place, it's about their stay and all the things that they do. Because they might love your space, but if they feel like, oh, there was nothing to do there, they might never want to come back, even though they loved your space. But if they had a full, amazing experience, and you helped shepherd them through that by pointing them to the things that they might have enjoyed, we'll appreciate you for it.
Yeah, pet friendly is a good example. So a lot of hotels, a lot of inns are pet friendly. So you come, you check in, you have your dog, you bring him to the room. There's a rule book that says do not leave your dog unattended, do not have your dog off leash, and that's where it ends, right? So if you had a pet friendly itinerary, people could come with their dog and know where to go, know where the dog park is, know where they could grab doggy treats. I mean, that's just one example of where an itinerary could be really, really useful so that people don't just come with their dog and then not know what to do or where to go, but actually have a great time there.
Sonia touched on the pets thing. I mean, if you don't believe pets are people's children, you're missing out. We literally had a pet package where we offered a pet room service menu, a pet psychic reading, a pet masseuse would come and do a massage for a pet. I mean, it is true, and by the way, it's a great source of revenue too. And in fact, think about this. You find some person in your town who does pet psychic. There'll be plenty of them every town, trust me. You may never book one, but think about the PR value you get out of them. So-and-so in and whatever has such a great service, someone will come to the hotel and do a psychic reading for your pet. So we think about PR in the traditional sense, and more things about PR. We used to do packages, right? And we'd say, sure, Mother's Day package is always gonna sell, and you get a rose and you get whatever. But then we did this package, we called it the divorce package. If you're getting a divorce, we'll give you a room here, your ex-wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, and you have 2-hour consult with a lawyer. Never sold once, but you will literally make national newspaper. Now, it's gotta be tasteful. You can go obviously pretty crazy with it. But you guys have seen it, the buy a martini for $50,000, and at the bottom of the martini, there's a diamond. No one wants to buy that, but that's a story. So how do you create stories that are funny, irreverent, that will get you coverage and attention? And that to me is far more valuable than any influencer. And it seems like you guys in such unique locations, you could come up with interesting things, because fundamentally our biggest challenge collectively is eyeballs. People have so many choices and they're so busy in ADD. How do we get their attention for that 2 seconds to make them remember our place?
You can make a video. Well, you have to make a video of the dog getting his psychic reading. And one other thing about, I imagine that you all have a lot of conversations with the people who are staying with you, and I imagine you have the best stories. So all the content that you create doesn't always have to be your own stories or your own experiences. Sometimes you can just share, hey, you won't believe what happened with this guest, or what this guest told me, or blah, 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 blah. And it sets the stage for the type of experiences, the type of connection that the people have with you, that they're able to tell these things, share these stories with you. And it just helps get people to know you better, so that whenever they do meet you in person, they feel like family.
That's a great point, the storytelling. I mean, it's an overused term now, but think about it. Humans throughout history, for millennia before the written word, that's how history was transferred. So it's innate to us to love hearing stories, and you guys have amazing stories, to Sonia's point. Just about your guy. And by the way, Mark Twain, never let the facts get in the way of a great story. You can always embellish a little, that's okay. But ultimately tell stories, and we're hearing again and again in video, like don't write a 7-page story because I'm not gonna read any of it, right? make a video and tell the story of the great. You don't have to obviously name anyone. We're very especially if someone famous stays with you. But you can talk about the famous person who stayed once and had to have their Shetland pony flown in to be their companion, or whatever the story may be. That's going to grab a lot of attention. Those stories you never know. Literally one time for no reason it'll catch fire, and there'll be 10 million views for it. So.
Maybe one last question.
You know, as I said this morning, our place is very friendly and everyone is welcome and it's wonderful, but it also raises questions about privacy, especially when you talk about social media and about telling stories. You know, I think all of us who are in this business have seen circumstances that probably would be best not publicized, or best not sent by email, and certainly not put on some of the other social media sites. I had a happy couple, 2 males, and you know, they produced each other as husband and wife, and it was wonderful, it was great, it would have been a great story to put on the website, except 6 weeks later, one of them showed up with his wife to celebrate their anniversary, and she was female.
Yeah.
So,
That is a great story.
Which
I want to hear that
one of those 2 stories should we run, or should we, you know, but how do you deal with privacy? You know, with pictures, and especially with video.
Well, you can never take a photo of someone and post it, or a video of someone and post it without their consent, obviously, right? And you know, we know a lot about what happens in hotels, and I tell people the example, by the way, when someone leaves something in the room, no matter how valuable, you never call and say, you left your phone in the room, because the wife may answer and be like, he was at the hotel, he was supposed to be whatever. So the idea is either consent, or you don't have to use the actual names when you're telling the story, right? Or the actual photos. But yeah, you can't just go around and video your guests and post it. That would be
And also just think about what your values are. You'll know, and the values will guide you on what you think is something that's shareable and what isn't. Because the sharing of stories is more of entertainment value, and we don't want to make entertainment out of somebody's pain. Right? So.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Bashar, Sonia.